Derrick James, coach and trainer of Ryan Garcia, believes that Devin Haney will have difficulty returning after the defeat that he suffered at the hands of Ryan Garcia on Saturday, April 20th. An interesting perspective. Let's talk about what James had to say and what he thinks. Derrick James has found himself in a precarious position of making comments that maybe he believes or maybe he doesn't. But what's even more interesting is he hasn't made the assessment of overall coaching and the experiencing of coaching in order to say something about Devin Haney having difficulty coming back from the defeat that he suffered this past Saturday, April 20th, at the hands of Ryan Garcia. Garcia entered this fight with a determination not to make the weight for the 140-pound WBC title that was originally on the line. Once the Haneys accepted the fight with Ryan not making weight, the WBC title was taken off of the table, and Garcia was able to go ahead, make the purse and the fight with Haney, in which it saw him win a majority decision after dropping Haney 3 times during the match. It was clearly evident that going into this fight, Garcia had placed himself to be in an advantageous position. It was Haney and his willingness to go forward and accept the challenge as a real champion does, without restriction, that allowed the fight to take place to begin with. But again, as I spoke of the precarious nature of James, who could see that this young man whom he was training for this fight wasn't entering the bout clean and sharp. Garcia had drawn a lot of unnecessary attention to himself going into this, having many people question his mental state. James, who has also worked with the likes of Jermell Charlo, Errol Spence Jr., and recently Anthony Joshua, is definitely a person who has seen a variety of psychological characteristic traits in these fighters. But to make the assessment that Haney would have difficulty is interesting. For starters, Haney, whose record has now dropped to 31-1 with 15 KOs, had never shown the lack of mental strength prior to Saturday night's event. And I do believe what ended up happening to Haney was a result of the history that he's had with Garcia and Garcia's behavior leading up to the fight. Haney is more than a confident fighter. He's the type of fighter that can box with the best in the business. Garcia is a puncher, and he can punch with that gaunted left hook with the best in the business. But history has shown James has had more on his team that have had to deal with the psychological aspects of losing more than Haney, where this is his first go-round. Let us not forget, in the past year, in his camp, he's had the trio of Errol Spence, Anthony Joshua, Ryan Garcia, and don't forget Jermell Charlo. So I'm not certain where this bold statement would come from. He says that he thinks it would have been better for Haney to get knocked out because it's going to be harder for him to recover from getting beat up like that. Well, seeing that Haney doesn't often take punishment in fights, and it was a bad game plan to begin with to go in against the bigger Garcia, what remains is the fact that Haney may want to prove naysayers, detractors, and now Derrick James wrong. James himself has made some bad decisions over the past couple of years, and it has changed the outlook on how people may view him as a coach and trainer. Some of the decisions that he makes and some of the credit that he is allotted on both sides of the coin are often not justified. But we will see what the future holds and what the future holds for Derrick James as a coach and trainer. It was never clearly made obvious to the public that something happened between he and Joshua, and they no longer are associating professionally. Garcia, with the success of this bout, is going to be presented with more opportunities, but that doesn't mean that he is going to draw from the wisdom and teachings of James, someone who goes so far out on a limb as he had done leading up to the promotion of his fight against Haney. Appears to be a live wire, and you have to be very careful around live wires. Otherwise, you'll receive a shock. So, I found it interesting that Derrick James considers what Ryan was able to do in his fight against Devin Haney enough to alter the course of Haney's future. And it's not like he took a terrible beating. He was in with someone who was bigger, weighed more, and had a bit of a heavier punch. But that doesn't mean the man has better ability, ring, IQ, and an overall mental strength. Because as last that I counted in that fight, Devin went down several times, but he got up more times. And Haney got up and kept fighting to the final bell. They've already said they don't want to give him a rematch. This is Stormy B-Man. Shout out to the mighty LDBC and Liberated Perspective. Peace to everyone out there. And everyone, please remain safe.